Alright everybody, hello and welcome. You are here to view the Clan League match between RELIC and SHOJO. The Clan League is a 14v14 format with 8 minutes on the clock, attack-defense mode, which means there are 2 caps, and in order to win for the attackers, you have to kill all the defenders, or cap one of the 2 caps within the required 8 minutes. As the defenders, you win if they do not cap, or you kill all said attackers. Casting with me today is Gabe Angelos. Alright.
Hello, everyone. This is Gabe from Bulba. Wonderful being here.
Also known as Gray Sky and like a million other names. No.
Oh, I'm the new Carbon.
Carbon Ward confirmed. We're all Carbon Ward at heart, really.
Yes.
You know what else we're all at heart?
Good players.
That is true too. We're also all in favor of the Law's forehead.
Oh my god, Law's forehead is the 8th wonder of the world.
It is indeed, ladies and gentlemen. And tonight, Laz will be leading his men into battle, I believe. I think it's Laz that'll be calling, at least on Himmelsdorf, for our first map. Our second map of the night will be Sand River. Yes, Sand River, and our tiebreaker, should we need it, will be Ghost Town. Now, what do you know about Himmelsdorf, Gabe?
I know that it's a very urban environment and that it focuses on heavy tanks. But what a lot of people underestimate is the ability to move around the map with tanks such as 50Bs and Batchats.
Yes, I saw such a great example of that in the G versus R7 matches the other day in the Championship League, where G would position early 50Bs to try to catch anything moving down the 8 line, which is one of the key portions of Himmelsdorf. And they were able to output a lot of HP damage onto R7's E100s by getting their 50Bs in the correct position to get early shots.
I wonder if we'll see a famous moss strat, where you put a moss on the cap to block it from being capped.
That is very likely. Caps on Himmelsdorf are one of the easiest ways to win the map.
Yeah, the 2 cap is probably the easiest one to cap, because there's 2 areas on the cap where you can sit behind the building and cap it out.
Microphone activated.
And that focuses the defender to charge into the attacker. And typically it's a loss if the defender does that.
Alright, we are now about 25 seconds out. So who are you expecting to come out on top for overall tonight?
I wouldn't put it past SHOJO at winning, but Relic is a tried and true clan. And Loss's forehead, may it be the battering ram for victory for them.
I believe Relic will also come out on top, but I do not believe it will be a 5-0. I believe it'll be a 5-2 more than likely. So as we load in here, I think the biggest thing that stands out is the massive HP advantage SHOJO is going to have going into this, having E100s and 215Bs versus IS7s and E5s.
If I was going to take a guess, I would guess that Relic's either going to try to push down the 8 line or the 0 line, and try to get E100s around A6 to turn sideways and start a cap there.
Yeah, I'm wondering whether they're going to use the 1-2-1. I'm wondering if they're going to use the 1-2-1 to try to spot the hill, or if they're going to use that to spot the 1 line. And it looks like Relic is going to go ahead and head down the K line, positioning themselves more than likely for 1 cap encounter.
I guess I was wrong. They're done using 121 to cap on the 1-2 line. Maybe? No?
Oh, nope.
F1 then.
Their E5s are heading up towards the 8 line.
Yeah, it looks like they're doing a split. SHOJO's going for a 2 cap defense strat. That 1-2-1 should be able to own the 1-2 line if he gets there quick enough.
Alright, it looks like we got 2 IS7s on the hill for Relic, they'll be trying to shoot down the D line here to make sure that there are no tanks there, and if there are, that they can put out early shots of damage just to control that entire lane. If they can control the D line, then they can pretty much move around the map at will, wherever they want, without taking too much damage and without a risk of being lit. But it looks like the SHOJO defense they've set up is to have a surprise force of 50Bs sitting on that 0 line for anybody who wants to come off the hill. And a lot of hit points to surround and hold back the push from Relic, which looks like it's going to be focused down the 8 line.
Has any tank been spotted yet? I don't think it has.
I'm not sure, but looks like Relic is starting to move some of their IS-7s now. Alright.
Looks like someone's on peak.
We have Midas and Morphic moving up here. Looks like they're going to try to peek through the windows.
Relic has just blown out a fourth of their time so far, and no damage has been fired.
Yeah, this is really a big waste of time, to be quite honest. Relic is still trying to position themselves around the map against a large amount of hit points.
They're about to push down.
Yeah, looks like they're executing their push down the 8 line here.
Line.
We're going to follow along with one of the E100s. So this is where the decision with the 50Bs has to be made. Do they stay and fight the IS-7s, or do they come down and get their first clips into the E100s that are going to be pushing down through here?
Looks like they're going to stay on the 0 line. If those 50Bs clean up the IS-7s on the 0 line, they should be able to control the B line when Relic pushes in.
Relic is kind of stopping here, which isn't conducive to their push. They really need to be pushing around that IS-7 and getting him out so they don't have to worry about his angle of fire.
The fight, Relic has about 5 right now.
The 50Bs are now re-clipping, and the Relic tanks are still stuck in that one grid square.
Looks like this will probably go to SHOJO. Once they clean up those IS-7s, they should have a local overmatch on the tanks in the area. Looks like Relic's going to push down the 7 line, which would be a smart decision, and take out the E100s right there.
Yep, looks like the IS-7s were now killed after the 50Bs were able to reclip and come up the 0 line again, which means they can now be focused upon another portion of the map.
Yeah. Relic took too long with this push right here. They needed to not stop when they pushed in. They just stood like a deer in the headlights in front of that IS-7. SHOJO was set up for a 2 counter instead of 1-2 line. I think if Relic would have played the 1-2 line and turned the 100 sideways on there, capped out with the 121 behind it, they probably would have won.
I think one thing that both teams could have done a lot better was scouting. I mean, beyond the IS-7s at the hill and the 121 or 215B on the 2 line for each team, they really didn't try to get any aggressive lights anywhere in the map to find out where the other was. Relic just seemed like they kind of made a blind push through this.
Yeah. I think they led like the 2 E100s they pushed in. They didn't even bother scouting the 1-2 line.
Yep, looks like it's 7,000 hit, 8,000 hit point lead here for SHOJO, so it looks like they're just pushing in to finish off the tanks for Relic. This is going to be 1-0 SHOJO now. I don't see any way for Relic to come back from this, in this game at least.
What's interesting is that we didn't see a tank at G3, that's a common spot on this map.
Yeah, usually rushing an IS-7 or something down there.
Yeah, like a lot of teams rush an IS-7 there. And the way you can get that out is just to spam it with the hundreds, and no one's done that so far. I'm really surprised by that. Like 300, 400 HE damage from E100. Like you just do it for like a minute or 2 and it's done, and you lose nothing. Like you can like use like 3 100s on the hill. In 3 volleys, the IS-7 will be like dead or severely injured.
So a 14-3 game 1 going in the favor of SHOJO on Himmelsdorf.
Yeah, well, Relic kind of walked into that because they didn't scout it at all. They just pushed into a crossfire. Now I believe SHOJO is on the attack now and Relic is on the defense.
Yes, rounds are Each round they swap sides, and they play each map 4 times, until a winner is decided of best of 5. Or first to 5 wins best of 9.
Now, what I'm surprised by is that SHOJO isn't picking any IS-7s in their last match.
IS-7 known for being one of the trolliest tanks, but one of the lowest DPMs at tier 10, especially for heavies.
It has great armor for hull down, but other than that, it's not very useful.
Or if you're trying to get to a position fast with a little bit of speed as a heavy tank with armor, like trying to get to that G3 area.
Yeah, it goes fast in a straight line, and it can hold down somewhere. It has really good armor. And the Alpha is nothing to shy about. It's 500.
Also extremely fast going down hills. I remember on, what was it, Malinovka, usually people would bring Russian mediums, IS-7s, and Foches and mediums to get to the top of the hill quickly, and then IS-7s to push down the hill quickly.
Now, I would love to see some 260s in this action. It's as fast as a medium tank, but it has a heavy tank's gun and a heavy tank's hit points. The turret can be overmatched on top is the main problem, which is the disadvantage it has over the IS-7. But it's like a 113 with the IS-4 gun with better depression.
Better rate of fire. The only other problem that it has is it gets a heat round. But I think its standard round is APCR anyway, isn't it?
Yep, its APCR is its standard round.
Yeah.
It's a hard tank to get, but it's well worth the grind.
Right, so what changes do you expect either clan to make in this next one? For me, I'm expecting them to essentially do a better job at scouting so they can find out where the enemy is so they don't do another blind push.
Yeah, I would reckon so. But blind pushes can work in the Clan League. You just gotta not stop. Like if Relic pushed down the 0 line, they would have caught off the two 215Bs and the 250Bs there and gained tank lead. Even though that SHOJO had all their tanks there, that lone group isolated on the 0 line, they wouldn't have been able to run away from IS-7s going downhill. Like you said, they're very fast. Once again, SHOJO brings more hit points to the fight with D100s, and they have more flex power with the 50Bs.
Also a distinct lack of any tank destroyers whatsoever, while Relic is electing to use a JP and an E3. I know the E3 they're probably going to put hull down in the A4, A5 slot to overwatch the 2 cap because it's such a strong position for an E3 to be in. And probably the JP to watch down the 2 line. It's just a massive alpha hit for anything trying to push down the line.
Mm-hmm.
Move out.
Looks like SHOJO is deploying their 50Bs and 215B to the hill, along with the bat chat. Oh, I guess they're not going to use the bat to spot with. That's interesting. He could have ran around the F line at the start of the match and lit where Relic was going at the start. He could have sat at exactly G5 and saw all of them crossing at like A5 straight through the courtyard. Which I think is a mistake from SHOJO.
One thing we're noticing is that SHOJO is committing a lot more to the hill this round than Relic did last round. But it looks like Relic is doing the same thing and avoiding sitting in that D line to get shot at from the hill. Although you can still get lit with where Relic is currently heading to if the bat chat from SHOJO decides to pop into E9 right along the edge. He can sometimes spot the tanks down on the corner right at the 2 cap where the E5 is currently moving through.
I'm probably going to give this to Relic here. Simply because SHOJO is probably gonna... Well, it depends. Like, if the tanks on the 0 line manage to get down the 0 line unscathed and get their clips into the fight, SHOJO will have a very good chance of winning. But if that does not happen, they are severely handicapped. A lot is riding on the 50Bs. Each 50B can do about 1600 damage a clip. So the 3 of them can do like 4,800 damage if they all pen their shots, shooting a PCR. Of course, most people won't always pin their shots, so you should always assume that people will pin 3 out of 4. But that's enough to like kill 2 tanks every 28 seconds on their reload.
SHOJO as well is being a little bit slow on reacting to where they know Relic is not. Generally, you can say you know where an enemy is going to be if you don't light them in certain areas. And I guess that could be said for the case here, because if you don't see them down, really pushing the 2-line hard, you know they're more than likely going to be set up in that BC area between B6 and C9.
They're not doing a good job at scouting at all. They're not even scouting, it seems like.
Yeah, pretty much it's just the same scouting that we had in reverse. One tank poking at the hill, another tank poking F1 for the defenders.
I mean, if you're going to do a blind push in the match, you should probably drop the bat chat and bring another heavy tank.
What do you think of bringing the 1-2-1 here to play the F1 position?
The area around there is pretty flat, along with the rest of Himmelsdorf, so the 1-2-1 isn't a bad tank for this map.
I like it as well. If you put it up against another Russian medium, it just seems to tear the other Russian medium to shreds because its alpha can just get the other Russian medium down beforehand, before the 1-2-1 gets killed. But it looks like SHOJO here is making their move. They're probably going to make a move on the 1 cap with how their E100s are moving, and you can't really flex E100s all too much, so with the limited amount of time here, they're trying to make their 1 push, it seems like, going to be towards the 1 cap.
They're gonna have about 4 minutes when they start pushing. And if you notice, they kept the 250Bs on the hill to watch the C line, so Relic can't go through there, or flex through the 3 line as well. Because it'll have shots around D3. That's one angle they can come in to try to reset the cap. And they have complete control of the 3 line with the 250Bs on the hill there.
And one reason you would more likely leave 50Bs on the hill as opposed to 215s is simply because, one, they have the clip power, so if the enemy is going to be exposed for only a short amount of time, the 50Bs can get their damage out, but yet they can also relocate anywhere they need to a lot faster than a 215B would. So they're a lot more flexible for SHOJO if they want to push and put pressure back from the A line coming off the hill, or if they want to bring them down and come back through the H line to assist into the battle and get their points there quickly.
The lack of spotting is really getting on my nerves. Like, you just gotta, if you're gonna break a turtle, you gotta know where the enemy tanks are. You gotta keep it slow, steady progress. You find a weak point, you exploit it, you overwhelm it, then you continue on with the rest of the enemy team. But because neither team has shown that they are willing to do that, it's going to provide a massive disadvantage for their aggressor.
Alright, looks like SHOJO is finally making their push. Relic is now moving their tanks and flexing them over to the 2 line. And we have E100s leading it for SHOJO as they pull up onto the cap. Let's see if they try to create a wall or if they're just going to try to push as far as they can and hide some tanks behind them, just to put a light bit of cap pressure on to force them into SHOJO's hit points.
Ooh, that 50B took a big hit. But he won't be able to clip out the 1-2-1 unless he high rolls. Or he sets him on fire. Rip. Well, the forehead has fallen.
50Bs on the hill are now getting shots on the IS-7s that are trying to come through the 6 line of D6. So they're regretting their decision now.
Looks like SHOJO has put the bat chat on cap. If they control the 1 line, they should be able to win this.
Yep. Right. The E3 is sitting in a nice haul-down position here to shoot down the entire 2-1 line at anything he wants, but once again, the problem is going to be that Batchat, who's just sitting there accruing cap behind that solid building. And it's more than likely going to have to be the JPE to shoot an HE shell to get a reset if he can hit close enough, because he'll have the biggest splash.
I don't think that's going to happen. I think SHOJO is going to win this by cap.
I believe that as well. It doesn't look like there are any Relic tanks in position to go ahead and hit the Batchat behind that building. And they throw 3 tanks on cap, capping out in 1.
Sideways E100.
Shot goes out towards the cap, but it's all she wrote. Base has been captured. This one goes to SHOJO, 2-0.
Now, let's talk about like the 183 in organized play. Do you think it would be good to move out hold down position tanks with the Hesh round? I know previously, before the nerf, you could use it to do that, but The Hesh round lacks a little bit of pen to like pen haul down like I7s and E3s now.
In all honesty, for the Hesh round, I think you should just fire Hesh no matter what, because if it is hull down and you're firing AP, you could bounce, but with Hesh, if you hit, you're at least doing some kind of damage, just like with HE. And if by some miracle you do pen, it is a higher pen round than HE, so it will do a lot of damage. And if you're playing the 183 in Clan Wars, you're more than likely going to set it at a position where you're going to force enemy tanks to run in front of its gun, so it can be pre-aimed already, because it does have a very long aim time. And if we take a look at the after battle report, we see 4 Relic tanks finishing with 0 damage, including 2 of the I7s got pinned down on that D line by those 50Bs from the hill. So the 50Bs doing their job there, keeping tanks out of the fight.
Now, what I would like to see from a defense sometime is someone pushing instead of sitting and defending. I think that would throw off balance of a lot of teams. Because it seems like most teams set up either on the 7-8 line or the hill.
Yeah, I'd really like to see a fast 2-line play out of Relic here, kind of mimicking what SHOJO did, just a lot faster, to try to catch them off guard, because most of the Himmelsdorf games that I've seen personally and played in, and as we've seen today, are kind of slow and methodical, up until a certain point where they're like, okay, now we're going to push. But with the lack of scouting we've seen, a quick push could be what secures the Relic's first win in the series.
I hope Relic does win here, or else it'll be 3-0 on Himmelsdorf, and that would be a bad start for them. And it'll also break your prediction and my prediction.
Both our predictions are wrong. What are we doing with our lives, Gabe?
I don't know.
I'll be interested to see as well if Relic actually decides to drop some of their IS-7s to bring beefier tanks.
Yeah. They're really going 2012 here with the meta. All we're missing is T92s.
Actually, bringing in Artie on attack in Himmelsdorf can really throw some teams off and net you a lot of damage early if you spend the first 4 minutes just working the Artie. If they have any tank out of position that's committed just to the wrong area, that's not Artie safe, they can just take a pounding.
Yeah, just shove it on the hill, play 1-2 line, and it can hit like most of the people along the D line that turtle up in that spot. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I think it's D3 by those 2 windows. Beautiful shots. Conch GC or T92.
Relic opting for a little bit more hit points this game and a little bit extra DPS, bringing a couple extra 50Bs.
Yeah, they have a little bit more flex power. Looks like they're gonna have better control of the 1-2 line, hopefully, with this comp.
SHOJO still bringing a good bunch of E100s with 215Bs to back up the lack of the rate of fire of the E100s. 250Bs having very great DPM with an APCR round that does 400 average about every 7.7 seconds, I believe? 7.8 seconds?
What's really upsetting me is that Laws didn't bring a fire extinguisher. But he probably opted for rations. What he should have done is dropped the large med kit and brought rations instead, along with a fire extinguisher.
Yeah, you always try to want to bring a fire extinguisher, because when you don't have a fire extinguisher, that's a guaranteed loss of at least 1,000 extra hit points if he gets set on fire without the firefighting perk.
And that's what allowed the 50B to kill him and gain control of the 1-2 line.
Looks like Relic is putting a bit of a fast force on the hill this time, and a little bit more concentrated of a force, having 1-2-15 and the 450Bs. Maybe trying to mimic a little bit of what SHOJO did last game if they decide to go for a 2-line play. SHOJO pretty much having an identical setup to last game, although I think they have... looks about to be the same comp in the A0 square, with 250Bs and 215s.
Problem is they now have that heavy tank on the E1, and that's a lot more meteor than the 1-2-1.
Yeah, it's going to be very hard, especially if the 250B is able to just freely side scrape from the corner at anything that tries to come down the edge. He's guaranteed the first shot because they're going to have to push into him, and if he's side scraping, it's going to be even more difficult to pin him.
Looks like Law's forehead just bounced a shot in his 215B.
It does indeed. I can see the bounce right there. That ricochet on the top of his copula.
The forehead is strong with him.
Looks like their E100s are still putting blind fire up just to try to make sure that they cannot be lit again or put any free damage out onto relic tanks if they're not being cautious enough.
Now what's interesting is it looks like Relic is going to try to play the 1-2 line with the E100s and try to keep courtyard control with the heavy tanks in the middle while having control of the hill.
Looks like they're also pushing an IS-7 up earlier this time to try to get an extra light. This is about 50 to 60 seconds, a full minute earlier than they moved before last time. And this IS-7 looks like he's going to try to scout out how many tanks they have in the B3 corner. Or if they have anything on the corner. But the IS-7's position now is kind of pointless because they would have seen anything there from the hill. So he's really designed to poke down the 3 line, not just sit in this corner. But he's not poking down the 3 line, so his position is still being useless at the moment. Looks like SHOJO is bringing their 215 back just to reaffirm his defensive position, because if he gets caught in F1 by a push, he's going to take a lot more damage than if he's still safe in E1 behind the building. And then Relic now appears to be moving off the hill with their forces, or at least a few of them.
Looks like they're going to play the 1-2 line.
They really should be moving their IS-7s by now, at least grouping up onto the G3 corner.
Well, that would give it away that they're pushing, right?
Well, it might, but you gotta think of what tanks of them are going to be lit, considering the ranges of where SHOJO's tanks are. I think the only thing that would be lit right now might be the E5 poking via the IS-7 on the 8 line.
Right, but like, if they do get lit moving, that just confirms that they're pushing the 1-2 line. And they still haven't gotten the tanks off the hill that they need to get off the hill.
They could be trying to go for some kind of pincer attack, pull a distraction at the 1 cap, and then bring their 50Bs in to shoot the rear end of some other tanks to get a large hit point advantage.
Oh, looks like SHOJO's moving up the 0 line with their 215s. I think SHOJO is starting to figure out that it looks like there might be a 1-2 line play. They're starting to move more tanks over.
Yeah, I wonder how many tanks exactly from Relic have been lit on that hill. We know Laws, because he would bounce the shot, but was any other 50B poking down that 0 line looking for anything from SHOJO on the 0 line?
Looks like most teams go for a hard 2-line counter at the start. So a fast 1-line counter would be very useful for most teams.
Relic is now moving their 215B up. Once again, we're seeing this draw of the clock. We're down to under 3.5 minutes now, and Relic still hasn't really pushed past the midline of the map.
This does not look good.
Relic is now starting to move more forces up, but they're so split. Relic has 3 tanks in the K line, 2 tanks in the G line, and then tanks on the hill that are isolated that can't be supported from the low ground, but the low ground tanks can be supported on the hill if SHOJO decides to push out, but I think SHOJO knows better than to push out for hill shots.
Moving 250Bs off the hill. This is something you would do before pushing.
Yes, this is about 2 or 3 minutes too late, in my opinion. The 215B has now seen the E100s pushing up the 0 line, or the 1 line for SHOJO.
They're gonna get shredded by E3 APCR because they can shoot straight through the fence and straight through their turret or hull.
Yeah, that's another thing. Usually you don't want to place tanks with heat rounds on the 1-2 line simply because of those posts. Those posts count as destructible debris and completely stop heat rounds. And I'm amazed that this 215B from SHOJO wasn't angling for that first shot, because he could have just gotten volleyed and destroyed there.
Looks like things are heating up.
Yeah, the 250Bs are not in position. They're supposed to be here to counter anything on the 1 that cap, but even then, SHOJO still has 50 Bs that could just rush over and start capping, or start the decap.
It's 30 seconds for 3 tanks, and there's just not enough time.
Yep, this one looks to be another win for SHOJO, going up 3-0 against RELIC on Himmelsdorf.
This is not good.
Credit to RELIC, though, for being able to brawl this out, pushing in on Himmelsdorf. They were up in hit points a little bit, and relatively even, but they just made their moves way too late to have it count, really.
Yeah. They possibly could have won this if they pushed like a minute or 2 sooner. Probably 2 minutes.
Yeah, those 50 Bs not being able to kill that 215 were killer, because otherwise you could have had one E100 turn sideways on the cap and block the other two, so the E3 could not reset him. But that 215B living there, with the 50 Bs not there to support, really hurt them.
Now, I would be interested in seeing Fog of War in this organized play. I think it would provide many variables, and it might even encourage teams to scout a little more.
It would indeed, because I know from my experience in Strongholds as well as some other tournaments like clan exhibitions and whatnot, seeing the enemies line up beforehand, a good or decent caller knows what could be coming or what they can't possibly do with their current tank comp and can plan around it. So that's one aspect of mind games that could go into this, with bringing a comp that looks the same but is capable of doing a variety of things. If we look at the after-battle report for that, the Relic E100s really weren't able to accomplish much, 2 of them finishing with 0 damage.
They were just meat shields.
Yeah.
It was diversion. Like, they weren't meant to do damage, but losing out on that much HP for doing nothing, that's a big blow.
Yeah, I think that 215B that was on the 2 line, I believe that was Speak No Evil. He finished top damage with 5.5k, almost 5.6.
Brutal. Fired 17 shots, pinned for 14 out of 14.
A CPR will rip right through the side of an E100. So this will be our last round on Himmelsdorf, with SHOJO currently up 3-0, and Relic once again on the defense.
What's the tiebreaker map, LZ?
Tiebreaker map will be Ghost Town. So after this match, we will head to Sand River. And after Sand River, if Relic wins all the Sand River matchups, I'm assuming SHOJO wins this one, we'll be at 4-4, and we go to a best of 1 on Ghost Town. Now, if we do go to a tiebreaker, the points will differ for the results. If you win without going to tiebreaker, you get 3 points for the Clan League. If you go to tiebreaker and win, you get 1 point. If you lose either, you get 0.
Now, I would love to see some Japanese heavies from SHOJO. I think they would be great at blocking off the cap areas, especially for the 2 cap.
I think that's one thing we haven't seen a lot of teams do quite yet, is actually setting a large vehicle or a large tank on top of one of the cap corners so that they cannot be pressured from that area.
I would also like to see more Mosses. I know people hate on them. They're not very good for pub matches because they're so slow. But for organized play, they have 3,000 HP, they hit for 500. They have a very accurate gun because they move so slow. It's like a 215B's gun, except with a little bit less pen. But
All right.
3,000 HP and being nearly invulnerable if they're angling, I think that's a good trade-off.
Yep. Relic electing not to bring a medium tank onto the map, and might put a heavy down there in F1 to spot.
Let's go.
We'll see where they position these 50Bs if they try to get an early advantage with their high mobility and try to get early shots out.
Now, I would also like to see an a defender sometime attack the hill, and just push up the 0 line. Like if they spot most of the tanks along the FG line, just push up there and pick off the 3 or 4 isolated tanks the enemy team has.
Yeah, you got to be very careful with that, though. You need to be able to scout effectively in order to make a move like that. valuable, because I know from personal experience when Villain was fighting, I believe it was actually R7 during the preseason for this league. They tried to take Hill on Himmelsdorf, and we saw it early with just a few tanks, and we're like, okay, we can just push the 2-line and cap out. And that was a risk they took, and it ended up not paying out for them because we were able to cap the 2-cap out with so many of their tanks isolated.
Looks like Relic went for a 50-50 split with no tanks in the middle of the map.
Yeah, in my opinion, that's a huge mistake, because now they would have no clue if SHOJO was just doing a derp to the 2-cap right through the middle of the map.
Or
Granted, it's not something that's very popular, but it has been done before.
if they push straight up the 7-8 line and the 0 line, they just Panzer the group on the 0 line from Relic.
Oh, Relic is making a push towards the hill now, and the Batchat's looks like he's going over to scout it. Oh, the Batchat turned away. Relic might be able to get the drop on the tanks that are going to be on the hill here.
I'm psychic. I saw it coming.
Oh, the 50B's got to get over there. 50B's got to get over there. Oh, he sees it now. The 50B knows there's a 215B there. Alright, now is the moment for SHOJO where they have to decide what they want to do. He hasn't seen enough of the tanks to know whether they can fight on the hill or not, and their E100s are still positioned in J6, which are nowhere near either of the cap circles.
The Relic tanks really need to get around that corner before the autoloaders unload.
Oh, it looks like one of the 250Bs is taking a huge pounding, and now one of the 15Bs is already out. But the 50Bs now, they've begun to clip. So after losing 2 tanks, the 50Bs are going to have to run away from the hill.
I think they're gonna mostly get away unscathed here from those 50Bs from Relic. They came up really slow. They should have been
Yeah.
there with the 2 15Bs.
Relic really underestimated how many tanks were on the cap, or I mean on the hill, and just got shredded by the 50Bs on the corner.
You need to push in like Relic, like they're reloading. It took too long.
Oh,
Now
50Bs took too long to... Yep. Oh.
tanks.
They're focusing out the 50B, the autoloader. Down goes Stored Wall. They're still pushing onto the hill. The E100s are still isolated. They haven't moved an inch. This is basically just a hill game at the moment. But it looks like some of the SHOJO tanks are moving through the middle of the map to try to get shots up if Relic decides to commit to the low side of the hill.
SHOJO has the disadvantage on the hill. They're running off.
Yep.
Well, we'll pick up a free tank from this and do a lot of damage to another 50B, maybe?
Relic really needs to get a tank on the low side of the hill just to spot what's going, because they can't see the heavy line push coming through the 8 line.
No. This is really interesting.
And Relic is going to have to react extremely fast to this 2-cap pressure.
Flesh just blocked Charles' sniper there. That was a mistake.
SHOJO has to be careful as well. They could get caught out here, but it looks like they're splitting up their tanks to try to occupy the Relic hill force time.
Relic is being really cautious right now. Looks like they're gonna push back up the 0 line, which is good. That means they'll be able to get shots around B6 where SHOJO started capping.
Here's what we were talking about before, putting a tank onto the cap just to solidify the positioning so they cannot sit on the corner. SHOJO is going to pound up tanks onto the corner, and they're just going to sit there. And Relic has to get around in order to reset them, and as it stands, the tanks on the hill are going to have to be the ones to get the resets. So they have to keep track, because SHOJO is doing a nice job of blocking off the way between the tanks with E100s.
The mistake is they're having the E100s turn their turret sideways instead of looking at the hill.
Alright, we're down to 13 seconds on the cap. These 50Bs at the top of the hill need to start getting some shots, or else they're just going to cap out. Looks like we're getting a reset or two. They're starting to focus out. The tanks are going to be towards the back.
This is close. If Relic can get the resets in, they should win. They're
Yeah.
shooting the E100s and the 215Bs.
I actually think Relic is going to be able to pull this one out now, as long as the tanks of the hill can still put pressure towards the cap, because SHOJO's tanks are now caught in a crossfire, so as long as the resets can keep coming out from the hill force, Relic should be able to win this game. They're getting a sizable hit point lead.
SHOJO to decide to push that cap though, which was their problem. Did you notice that?
Yeah. The Batchat in C2 really should be on the 1 cap right now. He should be taking forces away from Relic to try to secure a cap on the 1 cap.
He won't be able to cap out in time. He has to do the damage.
Yeah, they could have pulled the 50B from... They could have pulled 50Bs from SHOJO onto the 1 cap, splitting Relics and forces entirely once they committed to killing what was on the 1 cap. That's a thing that I don't see a lot of clans doing, is putting pressure on both caps at the same time. When you put pressure on both caps at the same time, it's really difficult for the enemy team to deal with it. They have to decide where they want to commit the majority of their forces.
It's not fast enough to do it. it's more important he gets this clip in and does the damage in a fight this close with the HP this close. The problem that SHOJO did is they had too many things trying to block. So
Yeah, they just gave up a lot of hit points trying to block it off. Really, 2 E100s would have done the job, but it looks like they threw 4 tanks out there.
1, 2, 3, 4, like 4E100 sacrificed for nothing. That's the difference between them losing and winning this.
Yep, and the bat shot here from SHOJO should probably just die. Even if he runs away, it's an attack, so he wouldn't be able to win. Not like it was a defense. So RELIC getting their first win of the evening, and then the 4th game on Himmelsdorf. The score will now be 3-1 SHOJO favor going into Sand River.
I'm glad that I got to saw a hill push from the defenders now.
Yeah, it didn't turn out too well at the very beginning of it, but once the 50Bs from RELIC got up there, they were able to clean up the hill and really turn the game. But SHOJO's overcommitment really cost them.
That was a really bad push. I think if they would have like stayed on the hill and gotten their damage out more instead of trying to run away, that would have given them enough time to win for SHOJO, or if they started pushing faster. But that probably was the right call to pull them off the hill, but it was like too late or too early to do it. I probably would have told them to run off the hill as soon as I saw the 215Bs come up. And I would have lost one 50B. I wouldn't have been able to get most of my tanks on the hill. Of course, then again, I wouldn't have done as much damage against RELIC if, like, I told everyone to run away off the hill. That was really bad push.
Yeah, their 50Bs should have been with the 215Bs going all at once, but I think RELIC just underestimated how much they thought was going to be on the hill and just got punished trying to push that 150B. Alright. So with Himmelsdorf now over, we're moving on to Sand River. And Sand River is a map which is generally very medium heavy and 50B heavy, just for the ability to flex up and down the dunes, north to south, very fast, which you're going to have to do with only 8 minutes in the game.
I expect to see 50Bs, M53s, E5s, and Russian mediums, along with a couple bats.
E5s are very popular for the defenders on Sand River simply because you can just set them on the ridges and be hauled down. E5s are really strong now with the current buff they got in the last patch to their armor scheme.
Also, the STB-1 is not a bad tank either for Sand River.
Neither is the Leopard. If you put a Leopard out at range, he can snipe into the fight a lot better than an STB with the same amount of gun impression.
Mm-hmm. I'm surprised we don't see more 263s in organized play. Those things are hard to pin and they have great DPM.
I honestly think that
when there's not Artie.
I honestly think there's a small stigma with the 263 currently. It was really coming back into favor up until the release of Clan Wars 2.0. When Clan Wars 2.0 came out, you just couldn't effectively use 263s in battles anymore if enemy clans had the modules for Artie strikes and Artie strikes, because you just drop them on the 263s and being open top tanks, it was an auto pen if it near landed on it, and it just kills a 263 so quickly that I think it just fell out of favor. So even if you can't use them in these tournament battles, I think there's just a small stigma of people not wanting to use them.
I would also like to see more IS-4s.
IS-4s are very underrated now. Their armor is very powerful. The only downside related to the tank is it's very slow. Its movement is not very good, being a heavy tank, but just in general, even for a heavy tank, its rotation is bad, turret rotation is bad. It has a heat round for its premium round, so that also is a downside to it. But if you use it in the right spot, its armor and hit points can pay dividends. It's just like the IS-3 for Gold League, being able to reverse side scrape and side scrape off corners and just bounce a ridiculous amount of shells.
I know a lot of people say that the Conch GC is better than the T92, but that's not true in all circumstances. I mean, like in organized play, if you guys have noticed, tanks are really clumped up. The T92 is a lot better if you're hitting those groups. Like, let's say we're doing Clan Wars at Mount Nofka. Most teams go for the hill on the 0 line. They clump their mediums up, they move back and forth, sharing HP. One T92 round, it could probably do 4K damage, one shot, and change the entire play on the hill. Also, you don't see a lot of Batchat 155s, Artie. You would use those to pick off low HP mediums on the hill, such as like Malinofka. You have a team rush 12 mediums up the hill or something. One team has 3 Artie. It's not a big difference in mediums. I mean, you're gonna have what, 12 mediums on the hill, and they're gonna have like 13 because they're gonna leave something at their basis spot, maybe another tank in the middle of the map. So it's like 13 on 13, right? But you have 3 Artie. So you bring like 2 T92s in the Batchat Artie. 2 T92s, they fire twice. They're loaded as soon as a medium gets up the hill. They fire. They do 2 to 4K damage in that shot. That's 4 to like 8K damage right there. It's devastating. Then you just have like the Batchat 155 Artie. Focus on getting tanks that are below like 500 HP out.
Some clans generally tend to drop the Artie just to bring another tank for the hit points, like we saw in Himmelsdorf, but Sand River is really one of the maps where you can use Artie to its complete effectiveness because there's so many spots that are, well, every portion of the map is almost completely open. There are very few spots that can't be hit by Artie on this map, and the Kangchi Sea limits that even more. So nowhere on this map are you generally Artie safe, so if you get lit, an Artie is a very powerful thing to have in Sand River.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly what we thought it might be. A bunch of E5s and a bunch of Russian mediums and one Artie apiece each side. Now, the M53 is preferable over most other Artie because it has a decent rate of fire and great mobility for moving around the map when needed, plus the turret allows it to swing around and re-aim for shots very accurately.
Now, SHOJO didn't bring any Batchats. That's depressing. It's a great scout tank, and it's very good at eliminating isolated tanks later in the match. Like late early game is when the Batchat shines. Like early game when it's spotting or going along in a push, or late game where it's cleaning up or hunting down enemies. Because that autoloader is like a force multiplier for the tank. And for a short period of time, Batchat could have the firepower of 2 or 3 tanks. And if it hasn't lost any of its HP, it's able to just run up to another medium tank and just clip it. Or heavy tank.
Alright, so we see Relic setting up for a south side play with Russian mediums running down to the J line, pushing through the dunes and the E5s in the middle of the map. Now, putting E5s in this low center position here can be counterintuitive sometimes if your medium tanks cannot support them, and SHOJO decides to just dump on top of the E5s with every tank they have, or a majority of them. I think good.
I think SHOJO's too spread out to push and do that. What's gonna end up happening is Relic's gonna take control of the K line, and then SHOJO's gonna be stuck, unable to move because the E5s are gonna have vision of the center. And the Batchat's gonna be able to watch the 1-2 line.
Alright, we're going to hop on here with the Russian mediums as I expect the first engagement to be here in a few seconds, taking out that medium in the K line. Seems like they've been lit, so SHOJO knows that Relic is going to be playing the south now. And the mediums are going to come across, but I don't know how many shots SHOJO's tanks are going to have as they're crossing because they just don't have the tanks in position.
No, they're not gonna take much damage. Looks like SHOJO's ordering all their tanks to head down the 0 line.
Yeah, SHOJO should not cluster up in F0. If they cluster up in F0, it's just going to be an easy game for Midas down there to just drop a shell on multiple tanks and get a lot of splash damaging shots.
What's interesting is that not all the Relic mediums are pushing in, if you notice that. That allows them to flex mid-match and possibly go up north or flex into the fight if they need to.
It also allows different shots for angles. So if SHOJO decides to push across the field, Relic is going to have a multitude of lines of fire going down on tanks, so they can't focus in one area. And it looks like Relic is doing a nice coordinated push between their E5s and 140s to start putting on a little bit of cap pressure here in a second, it looks like, with a combined positional advantage. E5's holding up most of the tanks.
40. Oh my god, is Lost shooting heat off his bat chat? Or is that APCR? I couldn't tell.
I believe he favors heat in his bat chat. Because it does not lose pen over range. Heat is a shell that, unlike ACPR, does not lose pen over range now.
He should probably move while reloading and head towards like A0 to go for the arty.
Yeah, I believe that's what he's doing now. We can see him moving up through D4, and it looks like SHOJO's pushing in on towards some of the E5s. This is where Relic's Russian mediums really need to start focusing on whether they want to collapse in on one group of SHOJO's tanks. But it looks like Relic is content with just being up 3-0 right now and applying the cap pressure, forcing SHOJO to come to them. Laz is going to get up there uncontested, and if Laz can get to the arty, then it's basically going to be a free cap.
Yeah, well the problem is that he stopped to shoot these heavy tanks. If he would have went up to A0, he would have had even more shots on most of the enemy team.
Yeah. He would have been able to clear out the arty and then shoot down on any of the tanks on the low side. Stopping there, it gets the E5s lit, and he can get extra shots into them, but it still keeps the arty in play. SHOJO's positioning now is pretty bad. They're pinned in, and there's a cap going on both caps now.
I would say it's safe to say that Relic has won this one.
Yeah, I believe Relic is going to take this first game as well. SHOJO has to push in to reset these Russian mediums, and they're just being held back by this force of E5s and the Overwatch shots of the other Russian mediums sitting down there in J0. Laz looks like he's clipped up again and is now going for the E5s yet again, and probably going to finish both of them off this time. But Arty's still coming in with resets on these Relic 140s, but it looks like Relic has such a hit point advantage now, yeah. 15 to 4,000, this game is pretty much done. Relic is going to take this first attack. SHOJO's only chance would be to run the Arty and hope for some reason Relic doesn't try to cap out. But I think Relic is going to be able to wrap this one up quite nicely with a double kill there, a Bombardier from Midas on the two 140s. He's going to be happy about that.
Ooh, nice hit from their arty. SHOJO.
Yeah, I'm afraid it's a little too far too late. Looks like Laz is now finally going to go look for that arty. And one of the E5s from Relic crashed, jumping down the ledge, it appears. Got a little overzealous.
That is about to ram that M50. Oh no, he's not gonna go for the ram.
Nice high roll from Laz. 430. And a ram kill for the win.
He used his forehead.
Style points. Style points by the leader of Relic there.
Just like a general tap in the butt. Definitely serious.
Little tap, taparoo. Just a tiny tap.
Just a little tap.
Laz finishing top in damage there with nearly 5k in that bat chat. Being a pain in the butt for SHOJO.
That's about 6k damage worth of damage off of the clips alone. 3 clips. How many shots did he fire?
He fired 20 and hitting 16 and penning 14. So it's a good shot to pen ratio for Laz there in the bat chat, especially considering his first clip, I believe, was sniping at like 400 plus meters.
Let's go over what we saw wrong from SHOJO. Like pushing up the 0 line and getting stuck there. I think was their main problem.
Yeah, they had a distinct lack of scouting towards the north. They sent one tank to that middle ridge and then just stopped there. They let Relic move around the south side of the map without really contesting it all that much. And then they put themselves in low ground to give Relic a high ground advantage. Plus, since Relic could sit on the cap for free, SHOJO's tanks were just locked in place. So they couldn't do much once they lost the positioning. They really had to... I think they had to pick an early fight and commit to it, and hope that Relic had a few tanks out of position that couldn't support.
Well, I expect we're gonna see a lot of E5s and Russian mediums again.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very much the same type of comps as we progress through these matches. I don't think anything is really more favored than this lineup currently of E5s and Russian mediums and 1RD for this map.
I mean, like, it's not like you can bring E100s on this map because of all the hills. They'll just get shredded by anything that has turret armor. Because they're so big and slow. They can't move. I mean, maybe you could drive a mouse down the center of the map and turn it sideways and the cap one.
Now, this is one map I would like to see a 183 brought to. Just one of them could have the ability to completely take out a medium tank first shot of the game, if he can land it correctly.
I believe Sella would enjoy doing that. That's his favorite tank. The 183.
As well, if they're trying to sit on the cap, the 183 can throw a HESH shell or an HE shell down towards one of the corners of the cap, just like an RD piece, and splash multiple tanks to try to get a reset, if it was needed. But if he did hit another tank with an HE shell, it has such a large splash being a land RD that it could reset another tank automatically, if he didn't pen.
I mean, 183s versus lightly armed mediums, it's a no-brainer.
Well, it looks like we have pretty much identical comps coming out here, the only difference being a single bat chat, once again, for Laws and Relic, and a bunch of Russian mediums for each side with E5 complements, and one RD.
Looks like SHOJO has brought more 907s.
Yeah, I like the 907 armor scheme. It gets Amarak a lot, but it can bounce shells more reliably than the other Russian mediums while still having great DPM.
It's a better brawler than the 140, but not as good as the 62.
Yeah, the 62 fire on the move is like a laser as well. The 907 doesn't have the same effect, just like the 140's dispersion at range when you're on the move is kind of bad.
40 and the 907, like the tank, with like an ammo rack problem.
Right. One thing I'm noticing right off the start is SHOJO is splitting up some of their tanks. They're doing E5s in the middle as well, but they're sending 4 Russian mediums to the middle here. If they're not careful, Relic could quickly overmatch this, and SHOJO's E5s would not be able to support their 140s in the north.
I think it's okay, because the mediums, they can like just pull around the hill along the E line since Relic doesn't have anything on the 0.
Yeah, Relic really neglecting to leave anything on the top of the ridge in their base just to look for some cross shots.
Oh, SHOJO missed a lot of shots on those mediums crossing.
Yep. Here it looks like the E5s from Relic are getting pretty aggressive on these SHOJO mediums, and now they're running back, but this is going to put them right in the fire of Laws, sitting on that ridge in the bat chat.
They didn't leave any, the E5 should have been like up in the middle playing that map, section of the map, like up on the hills, playing it, hold down. They would have great shots if they were around E5. They could shoot the E5s as they poked over.
Yeah, I would really like to see Relic leave 1 or 2 more tanks on that F line just to counter something like this, because those 140s right now would just be getting torn to shreds. If, say, another Russian medium or, say, a 263, an excellent choice to sit on that ridge, we're just destroying those mediums right now. But looks like SHOJO's going to go for the same type of movement Relic did, only they're going to commit more than Relic.
They really need to take control of the 0 line of the Russian mediums. Like, the 140 is just like a linchpin where they are. It forces Relic to push into them and focus those out, instead of being able to move across open ground. It buys a little time. But they're just going to get shredded by the mediums coming around. Their best option would be to push into the E5s now, instead of getting shot near the crap back.
Yeah, so Relic really needs to focus this first group of 140s here, and it looks like they're doing a pretty good job of it. They're going to go down quickly, and then they just have to get a reset or 2 and take out the 2 E5s in the middle of the map that are now isolated.
It should work. They should be able to easily get a reset since they have nobody left. I'm assuming all those tanks are lit.
Yeah, hit points are relatively even, but Relic up 2 tanks, which keeps 2 of their guns in the fight, which really makes a difference.
Yeah, over time it does.
Alright, now Relic should really be committing their mediums to these 2 E5s and getting them out, while their E5s focus on trying to reset the cap. But it looks like they're just giving these E5s free shots into them, trying to brawl it out.
SHOJO will be able to cap out. Shouldn't. Should be like 90 shots.
Oh, there was a big reset, dropping it back down to 4 points. SHOJO's actually taken the hit point lead now, and evened it up 5-5.
This is interesting. I think it looks like Relic is playing sloppy now.
Relic really neglected to take more than one overmatch, and it's hurting them at the moment. We're still here with Morphic trying to see if he can pull something out, but it looks like he's going to get taken out, which leaves just the E5 group in the north and one singular 140 up underneath the lip to try to get some resets.
As long as that RD reload is able to hit and reset, they should be good. But...
Now we see SHOJO actually up on tanks and up on guns, but they're still applying the cap pressure. Although Charles now is really taking damage from those two E5s that were left alive on the high ground. And Charles goes down. I think this is now going to be a win for SHOJO. I don't think Relic's E5s can do enough here. They have to move, and if they move, they're going to be in the middle of a crossfire.
They can't. Relic really blew this hard.
I really think this came down to doing more than just killing the Russian mediums that were right about here in E5. They really need to commit and take out these two E5s down here and then start shooting some tanks in the back.
Well, the problem is that the round Russian needs to extend. I see 1, 2, 3, 4 Russian mediums from Relic right here. Where I just peeked on the map.
Which I can't see, by the way.
Right here. So like they overextended about 5 tanks, and that's what lost the match. It wasn't the failure to push in. It was the overzealous in pushing in. They pushed in way too quickly.
They also kept their tanks there. Their Russian mediums were getting shots from about E0, and the E5s were getting pressure onto the Russian mediums as well from G6, so their Russian mediums were just in the crossfire for the longest time, and that really hurt them. They needed to focus on one area and get it out, but they lacked focus, I think, in that battle.
Mediums would have stopped around F6, and then just focused out the 140s. I think they would have won, but they just kept going straight. And SHOJO just shot them while they were open. About 3 of them died in the open.
And that brings our current score total to 4-2.
Relic really needs to win the next 2 fights.
Yep. This is game point for SHOJO.
If SHOJO wins any of the next 2 fights, they win the series.
Oh wow. Laz got off 1 clip, only got 1 hit for 25 damage. I think that was a ram, because he didn't even pen it.
Heat is both a blessing and a curse.
It is truly indeed.
And also the Bat Chat is a really bad sniping tank. KT tells me that. He prefers to snipe in his Russian mediums. Love you, KT.
Only the most effective Chai snipers were able to transfer from Chai to Bulba.
Or the Chai snipers that can't speak Chinese.
Alright, so I expect Relic to do something similar, but I'd like to see how SHOJO is going to react differently compared to the first game. Because now we've seen the same type of strat work on attack both times for both clans. So it'll be interesting to see what adjustments they try to make to counter the attack strat that they're currently using and seeing. I don't think we're really going to see any type of lineup change either. I think we're going to be sticking around with the E5s and 140s. If anything changes, it'll just be positioning and where they choose to attack.
Yeah. The big problem is that it looks like most teams are going 1-2 line, and as you become more predictable, issues happen. Especially in series like this. Like if it's Clan Wars, like you can do the same thing 2 nights in a row. But like, it really clicks for people right now. You do the same thing, 5 minutes later you do the same thing, they're able to identify it and counter it. Which is what Relics hopefully have to do to win this.
I would like to see one of the clans try to go for a 2-cap attack in the north side and try to play that side of the map. I'd really like to see a demonstration of how that's done correctly, if they can pull it off. Because I know that of the 2 caps, that one is the harder one to cap out, because it doesn't have as much of a safe area as the 1 cap does.
Looks like SHOJO has opted to bring in 215Bs.
And a bat shot.
That's a big change up. They're probably
I know, right?
different.
Oh my god, guys, what is this missing? We're missing a bat shot. You're right. Throw that in there.
After seeing how well Wallace did the first game.
I think we'd have to average out his scores, so about 2,000, 2,400 damage between the 5k damage game and the 0k damage game. SHOJO having a hit point advantage this time with bringing in the 215s and an extra E5, so they have an extra heavy tank, and 2 of their heavy tanks have more hit points.
That's not really that big of an advantage though on hit points.
No, not really. It's about, yeah, it's 1,000. Literally 1,005.
That's 3 shots for a Russian medium.
Well, Relic looks like they're going to do some of the same type of movement as SHOJO, only they're committing more tanks to the north and fewer Russian mediums to the south. Well, it looks like these Russian mediums are going to try to get in position to shoot this batch out as he retreats up the hill during his scouting run. Only 1 shot connecting out of the 3, 2 of the 4.
Oof.
That could have been a lot better, but now they're going to be in the same position with 215Bs and E5 pushing down on their Russian mediums.
If they did this, they needed to keep the arty around D1. They would have had better shots where SHOJO's going to be playing.
Yeah, they have to be extremely careful too, and they could have left the bat shot up and about B4 to make sure nothing was coming around the side if they really wanted to do that. But this is what we were saying Relic did not do. Relic did not have tanks in position on F9, and SHOJO does, and they're putting shots out onto the Russian mediums, which are now pinned, looking in several different directions.
They're trapped. I think putting tanks on that hill if anyone has anything 0 is a big mistake.
Yeah, it looks like Relic brought all their mediums to the north now as well. They don't have any in the South K line to try to secure that area of the map.
I think if they would have pushed with their mediums north, like around the A line, maybe brought their heavy tanks up the middle, like that would have been a much different game.
So now we'll have to see how Relic tries to take their tanks out of position so they can make an attack, because the way it stands now, they're in a losing engagement, just taking fire from multiple angles.
They can't. Second they pull out, they'll get lose all their HP.
So I think they're going to have to try to make their arty work, who's now in D1, trying to get shots at their heavy tanks, whittle them down so they can push their mediums up that way. But SHOJO looks to be moving medium tanks down south to try to come up behind Relic's medium tanks so they can get up behind the E5s and get into the buildings in H5. Or maybe H5's too close that the ridge line will protect them, but they could be trying to bring more tanks down to the ridge to shoot at the Russian mediums.
I have to say, I think Relic's gonna lose this one. But if that happens, SHOJO takes the series.
And this is match point still for SHOJO, so Relic has to pull something out of their hat now. The forehead has to come through somewhere.
The biggest mistake I've seen from both teams tonight is a lack of scouting on who's good.
Yeah, lack of scouting and then overcommitment to some areas is really key. It seems like both for Sand River, both clans were still learning where the firing lines on this map were to position themselves accordingly. So if they didn't know where the firing lines were, you ended up in a situation now where you're being shot from multiple angles and nowhere to go.
It's halftime now in the game. Relic has 4 minutes to win.
Yep. And SHOJO is content just to keep doing what they're doing. They're on defense. Relic has to make the move.
Yes, a lot of people have underestimated SHOJO, including us, in this series.
We did indeed. I think it really looks like Relic wasn't quite as prepared as we assumed they might be.
Yeah. And that's
SHOJO, though, it's evident they still were learning things as the matches were going on. They were making tiny adjustments, and their tiny adjustments have been working out in their favor.
yeah.
Now you can look at the map positioning and just look at the positioning of all the tanks on the team, and SHOJO just currently surrounds almost all of Relic's tanks from a good 90-degree angle and more.
Yeah,
But there is a little engagement going up in the north with the bat chats, and looks like Lazarus is going to win that one due to Hans being down on hit points. But now Laz does not have a full clip and a full health 140 staring down at him.
yeah. He's gonna have to run away. It's safe. I think Relic's only option now is to just take their heavy tanks and just push the 1 cap.
Yeah. But even if they push the 1 cap, they're still in the crossfire. I think 2 cap would be the better option, but then they would have mediums brawling heavies down on hit points. But their E5s would be out of the fight, but that seems like the only thing they can really do in my mind that might give them a chance.
Well, what they needed to do was either push the 1 cap or reposition their E5s around E4, then push them up the middle of the map and take all their mediums and overwhelm the main group of SHOJO heavy tanks. I mean, that was their only 2 options after they got their medium stuck. They needed to do that sooner than later because of all the HP they lost with their mediums.
Yep, minute 30 left, time ticking down, Relic still in the same position. 7k hit point advantage now for SHOJO, as they're just sitting and waiting for time to run out. Time is working against Relic.
It would be interesting to see like a 14-man like medium rush up against the team.
We fixed the track. Get going.
Yeah, your focus fire would have to be on point, but if you could do it correctly, then you could catch a lot of tanks out of position, because most medium tanks would still be heading north.
14 tanks go in there, maybe like 10, and then like having like 2 or 3 or 4 come up the A line. Maybe like moving some like 50. Would 50 Bs work with that? I mean,
They
like,
could if you use them in like C6 to sit on the ridge and get shots there, and then basically pivot them north or south depending on whichever way the enemy team was going to try to come at you from.
I mean, like if you just pushed around the center and focused out anything along the 7 line with 14 tanks, the most tanks that are going to be there is what, 7, 8, like at most. And medium tanks have higher DPM than tanks.
Yep, and here we see SHOJO making their move with 15 seconds left to go and just pushing in, finishing off some Relic tanks. 9k hit point advantage now. And this one's going to go to SHOJO.
Just SHOJO just won because of Relic's poor initial positioning.
Yep, Relic sat in a crossfire and couldn't get out of it. And that's game and match to SHOJO. Well played. A final score of 5-2. SHOJO wins their first match of the Clan Challengers League.
I thought it was 5-3.
Was it 5-3? No, it was 5-2. Relic won 1 on each map.
Wow, looks like you got the scores wrong at the start of the series for Relic and SHOJO.
Yep. So well played to SHOJO, well deserved and well earned win. And I believe, yeah, that is the last battle. I'm just confirming. Yeah, that is the last battle. The final score is 5-2. Alright. So, Wednesday, I believe I'll be casting...
Good job,
let's see.
SHOJO. Looks like you won.
Reddit versus Yeah, Wednesday I'll be casting Reddit versus Foxy. You know. So I think that'll actually be an interesting game to see. Because they both have aggressive playstyles.
I would probably give it to Foxy though.
I don't know, the last time I fought Reddit they put up quite a handful fight. Although I wasn't calling the battle, but it was still good. Yes.
I don't know, Foxy can be creative with their strats.
Can you tell SHOJO that Relic wants to keep playing for lols?
Alright, I told them that. Looks like they have a full team.
Alright, Relic is readying up a team now as well. I guess they want an extra round of practice in. Okay. Which, you can't put it past them. The more experience you get in this game mode, the better you are to turn out. It gives you better chances. So this should be an interesting final match. It looks like Relic is bringing a 183 this time.
Oh, maybe someone was listening to your stream.
Maybe. Oh, look at that comp from SHOJO, though, bringing a 260 and a VK. Now we see the big guns come out, too. Alright, just a reminder, guys, the final score was 5-2. SHOJO did take it. This is an exhibition game that both teams have decided to play out.
Oh my god, they also brought another derp gun from Relic.
Oh, the 4005, the notorious paper tank.
Oh, now SHOJO breaks out to 260.
They should have done that on Himmelsdorf. I would have given them extra style points.
No tank on this map either.
Or as Andy calls them, courage points. Shout out to Andy Pans. Monitoring all the courage points for Villain. It'd be interesting to see how SHOJO tries to make their strat revolve around heavy slow tanks.
Obviously by going for the one cap.
They're probably going to block off using the 100 and VK and hide a 62 down there. It looks like double, though. The 4005 has not loaded into the game. He is sitting AFK and cap with his name highlighted out. Maybe his client crashed.
Does the Clan League allow for timeouts if people crash or no?
I don't believe so. But this is kind of an exhibition match anyway, so I don't think it would matter.
I mean, in the Gold League, like it's a pretty big deal. Like if your Artie doesn't load in, like on this map or something.
Ooh, 140 taking some big damage there with an Artie shot, tracking him and allowing another tank to get an extra shot in. And here SHOJO is putting on a little bit of cap pressure, bringing that E50M over there.
Looks like Laws has overextended.
Oh yeah, he committed and died. 250Bs, ripping to shreds.
That sounds like one of my bat chat YOLOs sometime.
This E50M pick not working out well on this cap. Just getting shot at and penned, turning his side to the enemy team. And down goes the E50.
Why didn't they have the E100 like that?
I don't know. They really spaced this out the incorrect way. Now the VK's down.
Maybe they're gonna turn the E100 sideways and have the 907 survive.
They're gonna try to form a triangle around the 907. But the Artie is still alive for Relic, so he can still get a reset. I mean, for the Artie, it would be better to shoot the dead carcass of the E50M, because that way you could splash the 907, rather than shooting the E100.
Eventually King Midas would run out of ammo, right? Sorry.
I believe he would. He also has a very long reset time of 46 seconds on the reload, so he can only reset once every 46.
think SHOJO did this wrong. They should have bought like 3 100s and spread them out and had like 2 tanks behind them or something.
Alright. I tried to click on a tank. We're highlighting the 260 here. It's bouncing a lot of damage on its side skirts, taking heat rounds from the top.
Get going.
That was Russian bias.
Indeed, Russian bias. We are watching the glorious reward tank in action here. He's going to go up against some E5s. See if the E5s know the weak point of the 260.
Does he have like the no Artie emblem on his tank?
I believe he does. That is a no S51 symbol on there.
So a new feature.
Ooh, big shot from the T92 hitting that E5 for over 1,000 damage.
Told you the 292 is good. So the new feature coming out is emblems that provide bonus to crews if you buy them along with the names. I think that's interesting. I wonder if the no Artie emblems will protect you from Artie. That would be nice.
That would be nice indeed. Maybe they'll like reduce critical damage from HE shells, so you won't lose 2 crew members on a 100 damage splash.
Or more likely, or hopefully.
Ooh, nice ram from the 260, finishing off that 140. Style points and courage points awarded.
Told you the 260's good. It's a really good tank.
We all know the 260's good.
It's so fast. So mobile.
Such wows. Alright, looks like Double actually loaded into the battle. So he's dealing some damage and taking some damage now. But this 183 Chromatic is taking on 250Bs and they're just having fun ramming them running down the hill.
We fixed the track.
Alright. So that is going to do it for us, ladies and gentlemen. As before, that was just an exhibition match. The final score was SHOJO 5-2. Alright. So I hope you guys enjoyed the broadcast.
I wonder if
And have a good night.
The tiebreaker on Just Tell.
They probably will, but I'm going to go ahead and end the stream here.
What about the people watching your stream, SoFlo Gaming stream? Don't you think they want to see this?
Yeah, you're focused.